the farm chores. Jason.
Oh, the animals were making far better work and progress than Mr. Jones and his men.
Very good. And what was their attitude towards these chores, Chelsea?
They were very happy, and they were willing to do it because they wanted to ensure a better life for themselves.
Very good. And are there any animals who are not happy? Leba. Leba?
No, they're all happy.
What about Molly and Benjamin? Are Molly and Benjamin happy?
I didn't get that.
Okay. So yes, all the animals are happy and enthusiastic because unlike human laborers, none of the animals steals anything for himself. And at this time, they still believe that they are working for themselves and for the betterment of the farm. At this time, they also still believe that they are working in a state of equality. The only animals who are not happy are Molly and Benjamin. Molly is very selfish and self-obsessed. All that matters to her is her own comfort, right? She wants ribbons, she wants to be petted, she wants lump sugar. And Benjamin is unmoved by the enthusiasm because he is cynical and cautiously wise. He has lived too long and seen too much to be swept away by a tide of enthusiasm. He is waiting to see how things go, and he's skeptical of the outcome. All right, 2A, what procedure was followed by the animals on Sundays? Jasmine?
On Sundays, they first hoisted the flag, and then they would go to the big barn for a meeting where they planned the work for the coming week.
Very good. Okay, and on Sundays, there was no work. Breakfast was an hour later. And there was a ceremony. Yes, they would hoist the flag. Snowball had found in the harness room an old green tablecloth and painted on its hoof a horn in white. Okay, and a hoof and a horn, right? A hoof and a horn. And this is symbolism comparable to the Soviet flag, which was a hammer and a sickle. So a hammer representing the working class who worked in industry, like in factories, for example, or the proletariat. And the sickle represented the rural peasants, the peasants that worked on farms. After the hoisting of the flag, all the animals trooped into the big barn for the General Assembly, which was known as the meeting. Here, the work of the coming week was planned out and resolutions were put forward and debated. The meeting always ended with the singing of the Beasts of England, and the afternoon was given up to recreation. Okay, so it's interesting to see what Sundays are like at this point in the novel, because they are certainly going to change. Japni, put your camera on. I told you guys, your camera has to be on. It's not my rules, I just follow them. Oh, and did you guys get my message about attendance? Did you see that post that I posted on Google Classroom? So starting on Monday, we need to take attendance for the cohort that is both in class as well as the cohort that's at home. So for example, on Monday, I've got period 1A in class. So period 1B, you need to fill out the Google form that I posted under classwork, okay? And you just tick the box present and write out your name. And you gotta do that within the first 15 minutes of class, because after the first 15 minutes, that's when I have to take attendance. Okay, so even if you're not in school during academic support periods, that's in the morning from 8:15 to 10:45, And then in the afternoon, I believe it's from 12 to 1, you still have to check in for attendance. Okay? And during the morning period, if you don't check in for attendance, you will be marked as absent, and that absence will be recorded. Okay, any questions about that? Okay. B, what role did the pigs assume during the general meeting? What role did the pigs assume? Gabrielle?
The pigs took like leadership of the farm. They told what the animals do in the farm, and they like debate about what actions they do next.
Yes, very good. The word leadership, good word. Yes. It was always the pigs who took the leadership, and it was always the pigs who put forth all the resolutions. The other animals understood how to vote, but they could never think of any resolutions on their own. Okay, so we see that the pigs are taking a position of leadership. And this is because what we were talking about the other day, equality of predicament. There can never be true equality because we are not all the same when we are born. The pigs are naturally smarter than the other animals, so they can come up with the resolutions and the ideas, and the other animals, they just vote. What special privileges did the pigs enjoy? Kian?
Um, they set aside the harness room as a headquarters for themselves.
Good. Anything else?
That's the only thing I put.
Okay, there's two other important things. Amy?
I also only put the harness room.
Guys, what about the milk and the apples? That's a big deal, right? Milk and apples. The pigs are keeping those for themselves. All the animals want milk and apples. Milk and apples are delicious to animals, guys. Okay, they want the milk and apples too. So the pigs have kept the milk and the apples for themselves, and they've also sequestered themselves from the other animals by making the harness room their headquarters. And the pigs have also taken on a position of leadership. This means that there is emerging on the farm a hierarchy, which animalism is supposed to do away with. There's not supposed to be an hierarchy. There's not supposed to be some animals on the bottom and some animals on the top. And that was the goal of Marxism, to create a classless society where everyone is equal and there is no hierarchy. So early in the chapter, we come upon some important sentences by George Orwell. So for example, he says, the pigs were so clever that they could think of a way around every difficulty. As for the horses, they knew every inch of the field and in fact understood the business of mowing and raking better than Jones and his men had ever done. The pigs did not actually work, but directed and supervised the others. And with their superior knowledge, it was natural that the pigs should assume leadership. Okay, but in fact, George Orwell is telling us that the pigs actually did not know about the farm and how to work the farm, as well as, for example, the horses. So what the pigs really possess is leadership skills. Okay. And the pigs are really clever in terms of political life, politics. For example, they know how to use symbols like the flag to dominate the meetings. And of course, they are the ones who come up with the resolutions, and the other animals only know how to vote. So the pigs are really natural-born leaders, okay? Tasia, are you here? Tasia? I just saw Tasia joined, and now we have 22 people. Tasia, do you have a camera and a microphone? Type it into the chat. Okay, Tasia, then go onto your other laptop because you need to have a camera and a microphone, okay? To do our online meetings. Okay, I'll give you a minute, no problem. Okay, where were we? What question was I on? Oh, what relationship was developing between Napoleon and Snowball? Maya Career.
The relationship that's forming is hatred because they're always arguing and fighting.
Okay, what else?
That's all I wrote.
Okay, does anyone know who these two resemble in the Russian Revolution? Some of you must have been doing your work. Alan?
Snowball represents Leon Trotsky, and Napoleon represents Joseph Stalin.
Very good. And the power struggle that developed between those two as well, which unfortunately Joseph Stalin won. So Snowball and Napoleon were the most active in the debates, but they were never in agreement. Whatever suggestion either of them made, the other could be counted on to oppose it. A power struggle was brewing between Stalin and Trotsky. So if we look at history, if some of you have already done some research, then you know what Trotsky's fate was. We'll get to that a little later. I don't want to be a spoiler. And the animal committees that Snowball tries to set up are clear references to the workers' committees that were organized by Trotsky immediately after the Soviet Revolution. So Trotsky was a much better man than Stalin. He cared about the people. He wanted what was best for the Russian people. He wanted them to be educated and literate, okay? Both generally as well as in the principles of Marxism. And Trotsky was a true Marxist, okay? He believed in equality and a classless society, and he wanted to make Russia a better place for everyone. And he had a lot of those committees too, to educate the masses, to make them literate. So we see that in Snowball here in the book because he represents Trotsky. And like Trotsky, Snowball was a true follower of animalism who wanted the best for the animals and wanted the best for the farm. Okay? Take a sip of my coffee. What happened to the puppies of Jessie and Bluebell? Harsimran?
Napoleon took the puppies away from their mothers and said that he would educate them himself.
Very good. They will come into play a little later in the book. So let's see what quote unquote educate means in the eyes of Napoleon. How have the pigs become more and more isolated? Have they become more and more isolated? Gian?
They became more isolated because they had like a headquarters for themselves, and they would hold meetings where they would study things that they found from the farmhouse.
Okay, good. So that's the harness room, which they set up as their headquarters. And they would go there in the evenings to study and to also, they did not work with the other animals, right? The other animals are all out working in the fields, working on the farm. They don't work alongside the other animals in the farm. That's a huge difference. If you're working in a factory, guys, and you're on the factory floor, working on the assembly line, and your boss is upstairs in an office working on a computer and a desk, you are separated, okay? So they are not working alongside the other animals on the farm. good because they don't work, right? They also stick together and don't really socialize with the other animals. Okay, they don't. So it's like the pigs on one side socializing and being together, and then on the other side you've got all the other animals. Okay. How did Squealer justify the pigs getting the milk only? How did he justify that, Sudharsan?
He said that milk and apples helps boost their brain power.
And?
Oh, that's all I wrote.
Okay. I think you guys need to add a little bit more to these answers. Okay? Alan?
And that if they didn't have the brain work, then the whole the whole utopia would sort of fall off because they were the brains behind it.
Yes, very good. Okay? And that it was proven by science, that milk and apples contain substances absolutely necessary to the well-being of the pig. They were brain food, and the pigs were brain workers. Okay? And that the whole management and success of the farm depended on the pigs. Okay? So it was really for the sake of the animals and the sake of the well-being of the farm that the pigs ate these apples and drank this milk. So we can see here that a number of rules are corrupted. So first and most importantly, all animals are equal. That is not being followed. The pigs are assuming a position of supremacy, and also a certain corruption brought about by power. But George Orwell is also interested in the corruption of language. So there are several tactics that the pigs use to subjugate the animals, okay? One is fear. So we see that a little bit here because, they say, well, we have to eat the milk and the apples because if we don't, the whole farm's going to fall apart, and then Jones will come back. You don't want Jones to come back, right? So they use fear against the animals. But there's also a corruption of language. The fact that they are using language to brainwash the animals, to convince them that milk and apples are essential for the pigs, and they must have these milk and apples. And this is Orwell criticizing the use of propaganda during the Russian Revolution, and how the government and Joseph Stalin and the Bolsheviks used propaganda to brainwash the people and to get the people on their side and to get the people to go along with their laws and their policies. Who did he threaten them with to keep them from going against this? If the pigs failed in their duty, Jones would come back. That's a fear tactic. And they will use other fear tactics as we go along. Number 8, what do you feel are the most important events in this chapter? Where was I? Ozazi?
So I put down, the fact that the animals can control the farm without Mr. Jones, like the progress they were making.
Very good, the progress that they were making. What else? Maya Rambali?
So I also said the same thing. And I also said how they started having those classes to educate all the other animals. It was showing that they were advancing.
Okay, very good. Okay, anything else? Samir? Samir?
Yeah, miss.
Yeah, I asked you a question.
Oh, number 8.
Why don't you know?
I didn't do that one, Miss.
You couldn't answer the question, what do you think was important in this chapter?
The last one, right?
It's an opinion question, Samir.
I don't think I did it.
You don't think you did it? Samir, homework is not optional. Homework is mandatory.
Miss, I swear I did all the other questions. I just didn't do that one.
Well, no, you didn't do homework because you didn't do all the questions, and homework requires all the questions. Okay?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so the pigs keeping the milk and apples for themselves is obviously important. And Squealer using propaganda to convince the animals is really important. Okay, the use of propaganda. And also the sheep reducing the principles of animalism to one slogan: 4 legs good, 2 legs bad. Okay, so that is a dangerous because it's easy to understand, it's simple, it's dangerously simple, and therefore it's easy to manipulate it, right? It's a lot easier to manipulate 4 legs good, 2 legs bad than it is to manipulate all the commandments, okay? And we're going to see the pigs do that. They are going to manipulate all of the commandments. All right, any questions on chapter 3? Okay, so your homework is to read chapter 4 and answer the study questions. And now we are going to have one of our presentations. Oh, I gotta do attendance. Give me one. Okay, you get ready for the presentation. I gotta do attendance before I get in trouble again because I keep forgetting to put it into Trillium. So just to make sure. All right. Okay, Amy and Chelsea. Oh, let me get the rubric. Forgot, I gotta actually mark you. All right, Amy and Chelsea, you ready?
Yeah.
All right, I'm ready to be dazzled and amazed. Go ahead. Tell us what your topic is.
Karl Marx and the Marxist theory.
Okay, go ahead.
Miss, I'm just trying to figure out how to present.
Okay, so what you do you have like tabs that are open?
Yeah.
Okay, so you press present now, then you press a Chrome tab, then it'll show you the tabs that are open. You click the tab that you want, and then you press share.
Okay.
Okay? Shouldn't you guys have practiced this before presenting?
Probably. Can you see it?
Yeah, we can see.
Okay. Miss, my presentation is just black. I don't know if you
What's happening, Amy?
Can you see it?
Do you want to go to the second slide?
Okay. Wait, you can hear me, right?
Just click on the second slide.
Okay.
I just did the PowerPoint yesterday. It was fine.
Okay.
There you go.
Okay.
Okay, so who is Karl Marx? Well, Karl Marx was a German philosopher during the 19th century. He was well known for his beliefs about communism and capitalism. Marx published the Communist Manifesto in 1848 in collaboration with Friedrich Engels. This book outlines the theories about the essence of society and politics, which was their way of explaining the goals of Marxism. He also wrote Das Kapital years later, which discussed the labor theory of worth. In 1867, the first volume was published in Berlin. Then in 1888, in 1884, and 1885, the second and third volumes were published after Marx passed.
As one of 9 children, with 3 brothers and 5 sisters, Marx grew up to be the oldest living boy. Heinrich Marx, Marx's father, was a prominent lawyer. He was a very sophisticated man who was dedicated to the ideas of the philosophers Immanuel Kant and Voltaire, and took part in the Prussian constitutional agitations. Henriette Marx, who was once Henriette Pressburg, was Marx's mother. Both Henriette and Heinrich came from a long line of rabbis and were also Jewish. Heinrich, however, converted to Lutheranism prior to Marx's birth to evade anti-Semitism. Instead of becoming a Catholic, which was the prevalent religion in Germany, Marx was baptized a Lutheran at the age of 6 along with his siblings.
Education. Before becoming a famous philosopher, Marx spent years and years studying. Until the age of 12, he was taught from home by his father and was an average student. He then spent 5 years at Friedrich Wilhelm Gymnasium. Since the principal of the school, who was a friend of Marx's father, was a liberal, a Kantian, and well respected by the people of Rhineland, Germany, the police became very suspicious of him and in 1832 decided to raid the school. In October of 1836, Marx decided to enroll at the University of Bonn. By the end of his second semester, Marx had gotten into trouble with the law several times, so his dad insisted that he transfers to a more serious school, the University of Berlin. He studied law and philosophy in Berlin and was intrigued by the philosophy of G.W.F. Hegel, who was a professor in Berlin until his death in 1831. He quickly became active with the Young Hegelians, a revolutionary group of students who opposed the political and theological institutions of the day. Marx obtained his doctorate from the University of Jena in 1841, but was stopped from acquiring a teaching position for his radical politics. He started as a journalist and in 1842 became an editor of a liberal newspaper founded in Cologne. 1 year after the publication, the government ordered a closure, so Marx resigned.
What is Marxism? Marxism, which reflects on the conflict between capitalism and the working class, is a social, political, and economical theory originated by Karl Marx. It's a concept where there are no divisions in a society. Every person works for a common good, and ideally, class conflict is non-existent. It proposed that the conflict between social groups, especially between the bourgeoisie or the investor and the proletariat or the workers, determines the economic relationships of the capitalist system that would eventually lead to revolutionary communism. The main goal of Marxism is to create a classless society, better yet, a utopian society. But the issue with this theory is that it doesn't seem to work in the real world. This is because human beings are arrogant and selfish, which implies that they are not prepared to be treated as the same class as everybody else.
How does capitalism work? Well, capitalism is an economic system which is represented by private ownership, especially in the industrial sector, of the means of production. It's considered to be a monetary structure in which private corporations regulate the commerce, production, and income of a country, rather than the citizens whose time and labor power those firms. The issue with this is the amount of problems it can bring to society. Some examples are inequality, environmental damage, unnecessary resources, etc. Karl Marx was completely against capitalism because he explained that it would bring itself down. He explained how the bourgeoisie's wealth and power was based on the labor of the proletariats. Capitalism thus includes an underclass, but Marx expected that great discontent would be created by the continuing mistreatment of this underclass.
Communism is an economic structure based on Marxism, in which the government mainly controls the distribution of assets and property. It disregards liberal democracy and capitalism, and instead promotes a fair society in which the means of production are collectively controlled and private property is either non-existent or strongly restricted. Communism is quite similar to Marxism, but the main difference is that Marxism focuses on the conflicts between capitalists and the working class, whereas communism focuses primarily on common ownership and the lack of social divisions, assets, and the government. The overall goal for both of these theories is to achieve equality for everyone and become a utopian society. So we'll now show a video to further explain the theory of Marxism.
Karl Marx is often described as one of the greatest thinkers of the 19th century. His writings have inspired revolutions and generated centuries of fierce debate. Born in Prussia, now Germany, in May 1818, Marx believed that capitalism, which was in its infancy at the time, had serious flaws. Marx claimed that in pursuit of profit, capitalists would encourage their ideology that work is good, leisure is bad, and material things will make us happy, embracing mass production, depriving workers of job satisfaction, at the same time exploiting the working class. He became involved in the Communist League, a small group of intellectuals who wanted to abolish the class system and spread wealth equally. Marx wrote the Communist Manifesto in 1847 with his benefactor Friedrich Engels, laying out the Marxist vision of a society where wealth is distributed evenly. Property is owned publicly, and education is free for all. But Marx was little known and little read at the time. When he died in 1883, only 11 people attended his funeral. After his death, his ideas flourished. Based on the theory of Marxism came communism, the realization of a stateless society where all are equal. Communism became a global movement, but the utopian ideal of a fair and equal society failed to materialize. Communism tyrannized and impoverished its subjects and slaughtered them in the tens of millions. Today, capitalism dominates the world. But many of Marx's criticisms have never been more relevant. Today, the global disparity between rich and poor is striking. Marx predicted that capitalism would lead to the rich getting richer and the poor staying poor. He was right. He also predicted that capitalism would lead to boom and bust economics. Marx predicted that capitalism would lead to globalization and that a handful of firms would have huge market dominance.
Can you stop the video, please?
Miss, it won't pause.
However, Marx
I know.
underestimated the ability
That's why it's not playing, it's like
to make
glitching.
everybody richer by making products much cheaper. Since the 1980s, the number of people
It
in
won't
absolute
exactly
poverty
pause.
has fallen by about 1 billion. He also got wrong the capacity of capitalism
It won't
to
pause?
reform itself
No.
by creating welfare states that redistributed wealth through taxation. Although there is a lot to learn from Marx, his solution was far worse than the disease. At the same time, it can't be said that today's capitalism, dominated by immense inequality and financial crises, has triumphed.
Okay. Did you have your work cited?
Yes.
Can you put that up, please? Oh, it's not big enough. I can't read that at all. Can you hand that in to me on Monday, hon?
Yes, I can.
Okay, no problem. Okay, guys, so in terms of the presentations, I think we're going to do away with the multimedia piece, okay? Because when I tried to do it, I had my husband join my Google Meet and I presented a video and it was all well and good, but that's because there was only 2 people on it. But apparently, with everyone in the school right now, all being online and during these synchronous things, that these videos are not working properly, okay? So you can just present the information in PowerPoint form or whatnot, and just forget the multimedia piece, okay? Because I don't think they're gonna work, okay? All right, and we have Jason and Harsimran.
Miss, I have a quick question.
Who's asking me?
Jay.
Yeah.
The last time you said including the multimedia piece, it needs to be 15 minutes. So should it be like around 10, 12 minutes right now?
I said 15 to 20, so we'll say 10 to 15.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Oh, that's a nice picture. All right, guys.
So today we're going to talk about Karl Marx and some of his backstory, as well as his famous Marxist theory. So to start with, who is Karl Marx? Karl Marx is a German philosopher and a socialist who published the Communist Manifesto and Das Kapital.
The backstory of Karl Marx. Karl Heinrich Marx was born on May 5, 1818, in Trier, Prussia. Both his parents, Heinrich and Henrietta Marx, were Jewish, but Heinrich converted to Christianity in 1816. Marx was baptized as Lutheran in 1825 after his father died. Lutheran was the predominant faith in Trier. Marx was homeschooled until the age of 12. Marx studied philosophy and law at the University of Berlin. In 1836, Marx secretly engaged to Jenny von Westphalen. Jenny was from a higher-class family. In 1841, Marx received his doctorate from the University of Jena. Later in 1842, Marx began to work as a journalist, and he was the creator of Rheinische Zeitung, which was a liberal newspaper in Cologne. In 1843, Marx married Jenna and they moved to Paris.
Continuing on, in August of 1844, Karl Marx was brought together with a contributor, Friedrich Engels. Both of them wrote about criticism of the philosophy of Bruno Bauer. Their first collaboration was published later in 1845 as The Holy Family. Later in 1845, Marx was expelled from France, moved to Belgium, because he was writing for another article, Warworks, which had strong ties to an organization later known as the Communist League. In Brussels, Belgium, Marx was introduced to socialism and discontinued philosophy. While in Brussels, Marx wrote the German ideology. Both the German ideology and the thesis of Feuerbach were published after Karl Marx's death.
Continuing the backstory, at the start of 1846, a communist correspondence committee was founded by Marx in order for socialists around Europe to come together. In 1847, the organization asked Karl Marx and his collaborator Engels to write the manifesto of the Communist Party. Karl's work, the Communist Manifesto, was published in 1848. Later in 1849, Marx was expelled from Belgium, so Marx traveled to France but was deported from there too. Marx had to move to London because Prussia, Marx's birthplace, refused to accept him. In 1867, Marx became focused on economic theory and capitalism. Hence, he published Volume 1 of Das Kapital. The remaining volumes were published by his collaborator Engels.
Marxist theory. So what is the Marxist theory? To put it simply, Marxism is a form of a social and economic system that believes that equal effort gets equal pay for the solidarity of the group. It is the idea that a person who works and provides will get an equal amount of value and resources. Since the higher class have the most power and involvement, they will get most of the profit as opposed to those who are below them. The philosophy restricts the higher class's power in which that all people, rich and poor, can and will work and get the equal effort, resources, and necessities as they need. Karl Marx argued that opportune people will triumph while those who are not will not thrive in society. Marxist philosophy believes that no one is above one another. It targets and tries to eliminate corruption, scam artists, and anything of the sort. Hence, everyone will get an equal amount of production and other bases of living.
The death of Karl Marx. Karl Marx died of pleurisy. Pleurisy is a condition where your pleura, your two large, thin tissues separating your lungs from the chest wall, become inflamed. This causes a sharp pain that continues to worsen while you breathe. Karl Marx died on March 14, 1883. So should we leave the video?
We can try it and see if it's any better, but
Marxism is a theory based on the ideas of the philosopher Karl Marx. Marx was born in Germany in 1818 and died in London in 1883. He's buried in Highgate Cemetery in North London. Marxism is what is known as a conflict theory because it states that society is in conflict with each other, and Marxism claims that this conflict is between the rich and the poor. Now, Marxism as we understand it as sociologists is a political and economic philosophy, a view of the way things are now, and suggestions as to where society is headed. The danger is that we start to view it based on what we understand about its relationship to communism and the politics and oppression of the old Soviet Union. Marx never saw communism in this way. He saw it as liberation and as a leveler, a way of creating a fairer society and of a way of getting the best out of all people, not just those with money and power. To really understand Marxism, we need to start with its opposite, capitalism. Capitalism represents the type of society you and I live in today. In Marx's terms, it's an economic system based on private ownership of the means of production. What this means is that our society today is based on a few people who own factories, businesses, shops, and other corporations. These corporations aren't owned by the people who work for them, the employees, or jointly by the employees and the owners, but by the owners only. Marx was formulating his theories during the Industrial Revolution, a time when Britain and other countries were going through a very dramatic change. The old feudal system, when lords of the manor owned the land, meant that the ordinary people had freedom and rights to all land. It was held in common. When the government passed a number of enclosure acts in the 1700s and 1800s, ordinary people no longer had the right to live on this land, and many of them were forced to pack up and move to the towns and the cities, which were beginning to grow due to the increase in factories and textile mills. Whereas previously people were free to keep their own animals and grow their own crops on common land, once they reached the cities, they had to find work in the factories, in the employment of the factory owners. The work was hard and often dangerous, and the pay was very poor. Many factory owners didn't want to pay high wages because this would mean less profit for them, so children were often used as cheap labour. The Industrial Revolution promoted a capitalist way of thinking, what we call a capitalist ideology, and also created two distinct groups of people. The factory owners, who were middle class, Marx called these the bourgeoisie, and the workers, or working class, Marx called these the proletariat. Marx was on the side of the proletariat because he saw them as being treated unfairly by the factory owners. Not only did Marx see them as being treated unfairly or being oppressed, he also saw the system as one that tried very hard to make sure that the poor stayed poor and the rich continued to get richer. So Marxism views capitalist society as being based on a system that encourages inequality, because the rich will always need someone to do the work they don't want to do. It's called a conflict theory because society is in conflict, the proletariat versus the bourgeoisie. However, Marx also suggested that at some point the working class would realise that they had the power to change things. Through education and personal development, some members of the proletariat would begin to understand the system better and devise ways of changing it. Marx believed that such radical change could only come about through revolution, when the workers rise up and overthrow those who are treating them unfairly. In place of capitalism, a new system would be established in which all people were treated equally and all the factories and businesses were owned by everyone. In other words, they were communally owned. Marx called this system communism.
Okay, can you hand in that works cited to me, please?
Okay.
Okay, and I think, so you know what, that video was really good. See, the videos really help you understand the information. So I think we will go way ahead with the videos and see if they work. Is there something you did on that video, Harsimran, like the way that you posted it or anything?
No, I just inserted it through slides.
Through slides?
Yes.
Okay. So guys, do that. Ask Harsimran what she did because that video worked. The videos are really good for us understanding the information. You know, how they were talking about, you know, how in a communist society, like, so think about that, guys. Like in a communist society, the government owns everything. The government owns all the businesses. Can you imagine how much power that is, right? How much wealth and how much power. So the government owns everything. And then the government is supposed to equally distribute everything amongst society so that everyone is equal. That's how it's supposed to work. But if you give a group of people that much wealth and that much power, corruption is going to ensue. Have you heard the saying, absolute power corrupts absolutely? You know? So, I mean, that's crazy that the government owns everything. Everything is publicly owned. And then the government is supposed to distribute everything equally amongst the people. Okay, I don't think we finished taking up literary terms. So take out your literary terms and we will finish taking those up. And a couple of things. Okay, so I'm going to see cohort A on Monday. Remember, cohort B, you got to be signing into attendance. So your monologue is due on Monday. And we're also going to start My Book of Life. So make sure that you bring in My Book of Life to class for Monday. Then I'm going to see cohort B on Wednesday. Okay? Your monologue is due on Thursday. I'm also seeing you Thursday. This is so confusing. And we're supposed to start My Book of Life on Thursday, but bring Othello as well as My Book of Life to class on Wednesday, just in case we get to it. Okay? Everyone got that? Okay.
Wait, Miss, we're only in your class on Thursday next week, right?
No, Wednesday and Thursday. Remember, Wednesdays are alternating?
Okay. I don't.
Okay.
My economics teacher told me to come into his class on Wednesday.
Does anyone else have us in class here on Wednesday? What do you guys got?
Yeah, my economics teacher said the same thing. Well, we have the same economics teacher.
Okay. Thanks for that, Alan. That didn't help. Anyone else? Anyone else? Where does anyone else think they're supposed to be next Wednesday? I don't think I made a mistake.
I didn't even know we were supposed to come this Wednesday, to be honest, because we came this Wednesday, so how come we're coming next week Wednesday too?
Okay. No, this Wednesday, this is the week of September 21st to the 25th, right? Okay, so this Wednesday we had 2B. Period 2, cohort B. We're period 1. Okay, so cohort B, just bring your My Book of Life books to class for Thursday, okay? And check the school website or Twitter, the school's Twitter, and that gives you the schedule for every week. So you know exactly what you're doing next week, okay? Because we're all confused. So I gotta check this, I gotta check the schedule as well. All right, so the school website has the schedule and the school Twitter has the schedule. Okay, so make sure you check what the schedule is for next week. Okay? All right, let's take up those terms. I don't remember where we are. There we were. Okay. Consonants. Repeated consonant sounds anywhere in the words. All right. Give me something, Maya Career.
Miss Maya told me to tell you that her computer's glitching a lot and that she can't really say anything.
Okay. Is she still with us?
Yeah, she's still with us, but apparently it's really glitching and really slow.
Okay, well, Harsimran, give me a consonants. Harsimran?
Willy Wonka went to watch a whale.
Okay, but that's also at the beginning of that. That is right, okay? But that's no different than alliteration because it's at the beginning. So the W sound is at the beginning of the words. Okay? Okay? But it's still consonants. It's not a problem.
Okay.
Okay, let's see. Sudharsan, give me a consonants.
My jar of jam are in the car, which is far away. So,
So that's the AR sound?
yeah.
Okay. Do you think that's consonants or do you think that's assonance? Because assonance is vowel sounds. But that's a vowel and a consonant. So I wonder what that would be. I don't know myself if that would be a consonance or an assonance because that has both a vowel and a consonant. Okay, but it's a good sentence. All right. Give me another example. Alan.
She began realizing how strong the string was as she was dragging it.
What's the repeated sounds?
NG.
NG? NG?
Yeah.
Say it again.
NG. She began realizing how strong the string was as she was dragging it.
Oh, okay. Very good. Very good. Interesting. All right. Assonance. Jason?
Oh, pardon, Miss, you were calling me?
Huh?
Pardon, Miss, what was that again?
Assonance.
Assonance. All I see is a busy bee near the sycamore tree.
Oh, very good. That's really good. That's very creative. All right, good. Chelsea, assonance?
My owl hoots. That's all I came up with.
My owl hoots?
Yeah, that's all I came up with.
Okay, that's okay. Leba, assonance?
Try to light the fire.
Sorry?
Try to light the fire.
Okay, very good. All right. Oh, I'm interested in hearing some puns. Jasmine, give me a pun.
A bicycle can't stand on its own because it's too tired.
Oh, very good. Did you look that up or did you make that up?
No, I looked it up.
You looked it up. That's okay. Gabriel, give me a pun.
I was struggling to figure out how lightning works, but then it struck me.
Oh, that's I like that. That's good. Did you look that up or make that up?
I looked it up.
Yeah, see, you all looked up your puns. Come on. All right, give me another pun. Let's see. Where am I? Kian.
Wait, another pun?
Yeah, another pun.
You can tune a guitar, but you can't tune a fish.
I can't hear you.
You can tune a guitar, but you can't tune a fish. But I searched that one up, so. Yeah.
I like that. Very good. All right. Hyperbole. Amy.
I called her a million times.
All right, very good. Hyperboles are pretty obvious. How about a paradox? Let's see. Gian, a paradox.
The beginning of the end.
Okay, very good. Did you make that up?
Yeah, I did.
Okay. Siddharthan, a paradox.
I wrote the same thing.
What do you mean you wrote the same thing?
No, I actually did. I wrote the beginning is the end. I actually wrote the same thing.
The beginning is the end. Ozazi?
I put he was happy yet sad.
Okay, good. I'm interested in these paradoxes. Maya Rambali?
Okay.
Maya?
Miss, yeah.
Yeah, paradox.
Okay, all my children are smart, but some are smarter than the others.
That's not really a paradox. That can actually happen. You can have some kids
I
that
know,
are
but I searched,
smarter.
I didn't know what a paradox was, and I searched it up. I didn't search up this one, I made this one up on my own, but the examples were like this one.
Okay, but that's not a paradox.
All right.
Yeah, all my children are smart, but some are smarter than others. So I could say that about all my students. All my students are smart, but some are smarter than others. It's not a paradox. It's true. Okay. Give me another paradox. Let's see. Samir.
Miss, I had to see one of Siddharthan.
Oh, for God's sakes. I want to hear some paradoxes. I want to hear what you came up. Who's got one?
Wait.
Come on,
Can I say
someone
something?
volunteer. Give me a paradox.
I have one.
Who has one?
Me.
Japni?
Yeah.
All right, give it to us.
I always lie.
I always lie. How is that a paradox?
That means this. I can't say this sentence because that means this sentence is not true either.
It's not a paradox.
That's a paradox.
A paradox is something that doesn't make sense.
But miss, if I always lie, then I'm lying about always lying.
It's not a paradox, Japni.
But then I can't always lie.
It's still not a paradox. Alan?
Deep down, she was shallow.
How is that a paradox?
Because, like, deep down, I don't know, miss, I tried. Because it's like, it doesn't make sense because how she, never mind, actually.
Miss, I have one.
Who's got one?
Tasia.
Tasia? Okay, give me a paradox.
Save money by spending it.
Yes, okay, that's a paradox. How can you save money by spending it? Okay, that is a paradox. I was young yet old. How can you be young yet old? But that is true of some people. Some people are young, but they've got like a very mature, old soul to them. You know, they're young but old. That's a paradox. I was saved yet forever lost. That's a paradox. You see, guys, it's something that doesn't make sense, but that can be true. Okay? It was the best of times. It was the worst of times. All right. Any questions?
Miss,
Okay. So yeah?
I want to rephrase mine.
Okay, go ahead.
Everything I say is a lie.
Everything I say is a lie. Still not a paradox, Japanese.
But I'm lying by saying everything I say is a lie. So it can't be a lie.
There's no indication in this sentence that it's telling us you're lying. Maybe everything you say is a lie.
But that means I'm telling the truth by saying everything I say is a lie.
But
so
it's still not a paradox.
Okay, I don't think I understand what a paradox is.
I don't think you do. All right, so you're going to read chapter 4, answer the study questions. You're going to work on your research presentations. Cohort A is bringing their monologue as well as my book of life in on Monday. The people who presented are bringing me their works cited. Cohort B is bringing my book of life as well as their monologue on Thursday. Okay, and I'm pretty sure I'm seeing Cohort B on Wednesday, but check the school website to make sure you got the right schedule, okay? And I will do the same. All right, guys?
Miss?
All right. Yes, any questions?
Do you want the citations on paper or sent to you?
No, I'm seeing you Monday, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so can you bring them on paper?
Okay.
Yeah. Anyone else? Any other questions? Any questions? Okay, guys, have a great weekend. Okay? Bye.
I miss you too.
Bye. Have
Bye,
a
Miss.
great weekend.
Bye,
guys.
Miss.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, Miss.
Miss, can you explain the dramatic monologue clearly?
The dramatic one. Aren't I seeing you on Monday? Oh, it's due Monday.
Yeah.
Were you here when I gave it out?
Yeah.
Okay.
But
So you're gonna pick a moment in the play.
Mhm.
Right? Let's say it's Brabantio after the trial scene. You know, when he brings Othello to court, right? And he accuses Othello of using witchcraft and stuff. And then Desdemona sticks up for Othello. Okay, so we don't get to see how Brabantio feels after, right? So you pick a moment like that, or you can pick Rodrigo professing his love for Desdemona after he finds out that they eloped or something. Pick a moment like that, and you write what the character is thinking. It's like they're talking to themselves, okay? Like, oh my God, I can't believe my own daughter would disobey me this way. She has gone with the Moor, you know? Something like that. And then you're also going to add in actions and emotions. Like, it's like instructions for an actor who would be presenting it, okay?
Okay, thank
Do you
you.
understand? And you got to write it in Shakespearean,
Okay.
okay?
Okay, bye.
Bye, hun. Sorry? The monologue? Yeah, you're writing it out. Okay.
Miss?
Anyone else?
Yeah, are we gonna be losing any marks because of the video not working?
No. Amy,
Okay. Okay, just wanted to make sure.
don't worry about it.
Okay. Thank you, Miss.
You're welcome.
Have a good day.
You too. Anyone else?